All righty. Happy Friday, everyone. Today we are here with a very special guest. She is a former client of the Jimenez Law Firm. My name is Christina Jimenez. I am an attorney with the Jimenez Law Firm. I am board certified in family law in the state of Texas. And I have had the privilege to represent, goodness, at this point, probably thousands of clients in family law cases. And Renee was probably one of my most favorite. And she has been very gracious to come today and to visit with us and to kind of share her experience with the divorce process. And the idea is it would give everyone a little bit of insight as to how to deal with these types of cases when you're on that end, because most of the time when we're talking about this stuff, we're talking about it from the perspective of judges and lawyers and opposing counsels and what we think clients are thinking, but obviously we don't really know. So Renee, thank you so much for being here and sharing this with us. And, I guess whenever you and I spoke the first and second time about you potentially doing this, I'd asked you, is there anything that you don't really want me to touch on, anything that we want to make sure that we're keeping private? And you basically said you're kind of an open book and that you want to share your story. So if there's anything that we are talking about, just tell me, Christina, don't really want to talk about that, and we'll keep going. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
All righty. So I guess it was what, Renee, a couple years ago that we began the process of your divorce. It's now been about 11 months since it's all been kind of wrapped up and closed out. So I guess let's kind of start from the beginning. How long were you and your husband married?
33 years.
Okay, 33 years. And during your marriage, what was your job? What did he do? Talk to me a little bit about how y'all guys met and all of that.
We were both attended the same church and families knew each other. And so he was a friend. And he worked for Chevron and I worked for the Crisis Center and serving women and children in crisis. So.
How long have you done that?
20 plus years.
Okay. And so at the time that this whole process began, what were you still working or what was going on?
I was still working and just life was going on as normal as far as I knew. And woke up one day and heard the news.
And what news was that, Renee?
That my husband, I always say he made another choice. After 33 years, he had made another choice and he was moving that day.
So talk to me about that, because I remember when we first consulted and you kind of came in and you shared the story, and I think you told me that you'd had a dream that morning or that evening.
Yes.
So tell me, tell the people.
Okay, that dream, I woke up from a dream and he was sitting on the side of the bed and I put my hand on his back and I said, I can't imagine doing life without you. And I to this day, I never remembered the dream, but it was at that time that he told me that he had, that another person had his heart and he would be leaving that day to go and be with her. Yeah. And I just, all I could do is just take my hand off his back. And I probably said, wow, probably about 5 or 6 times. Wow. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, but it was true.
Did you have any idea that was coming?
Blindsided. I was totally blindsided. Didn't see any signs at all. No.
And so at this time, you guys had some children, but they're adult children, right?
Yeah. Between the two of us, we have 6 and I lose count on the grandchildren, but it's anywhere from 15 to 18 grandchildren. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. You're busy over there, huh?
Yeah. They're the light of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess your stories are probably the most difficult because I've represented lots of women, lots of men who have been married for decades, and just kind of something happens and things just kind of fall apart. And I guess what were your thoughts? What were your feelings when all this stuff just kind of went down?
Well, I asked him, I said, is there anything I can say or do to make you change your mind? And he said no. So there was a feeling of helplessness then. I was in shock for a while. The thing that I believe got me through that horrific time was my faith in the Lord, as well as my children and my friends. And so I just depended. I went to Buffalo Wallow and walked every day. And the Lord assured me he would never leave me or forsake me. And truly, he helped me take every breath until I came out of that shock period. Yeah. And then I met Miss Christine Jimenez.
That, and I remember very vividly when you called and we had our consultation and you kind of told me the story, and I don't know why it just stands out in my mind when you told me that he was leaving that day, and that I guess he came later in the afternoon or later that morning, I don't know when, but he had his bag and you just said, is there anything that I can do? Like, don't do this. And he just said, no.
He said no. Went out the back door, got in his truck, and went off into the sunset. Yeah.
And he never came back, right? I mean,
no.
That was that. And I remember when we initially consulted, I think it was a couple of weeks after that had taken place. And I remember thinking that you were thinking that he was going to come back, that this was kind of just like a phase, that, he was maybe going through a midlife crisis or something, and that there was still maybe an opportunity there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in shock. I couldn't imagine that this was actually happening. And without my faith in the Lord and my family and guidance from you as well as others, yeah. And the Lord said to me, I will never leave you or forsake you. And that's what held me.
Right.
That I wasn't alone. Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? I still loved him. That was the thing. I wasn't bitter. I didn't hate him. I said, I love you. I forgive you. Forgiveness was a huge part. And I won't tell you the third statement that I made.
I know what it is, but we don't have to share with everybody.
I don't have to share that part. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I knew that when we consulted, and honestly, I tell people all the time, and I probably told you whenever we were visiting, that I, make a living off of people divorcing and fighting for children and things of that nature. But typically during my consultations, and even if I'm just, talking to a random person on the street, I tell them that I wouldn't wish this process on my worst enemy. And that if there's any potential hope that you all can fix your relationship, then you really need to exhaust all efforts, because it's just hard. It's hard, and my thing is that I tell people is, everybody always thinks that the grass is going to be greener on the other side, right? But every person has their own bag that they come with. And, you know, I'm sure that I encouraged you to maybe, think about it. And, but I think on the other end, he had kind of made his choice,
He
right?
made it worse.
Right.
Absolutely. I couldn't imagine him walking away. I could deal with the fact that he was walking away from me if it was just me. But our children and our grandchildren, they are the light of my life, my grandchildren. So I had compassion for him. Yeah, so.
Well, and so to kind of, twist the knife a little bit further, so he files for divorce, which, we, I guess, weren't necessarily expecting that it would happen so quickly. And then we later learned that he had actually moved out of state to go and live with the mistress. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
So, it was, I think, maybe 3 or 4 weeks after we had initially consulted. And I guess let me back up a little bit. How did you hear about our firm?
I have a family friend. He was a friend of mine and Lester's, and he had used your service, or he had known about you. So yes, Mr. Gonzalez referred me.
Okay, awesome. And I guess, what was it that kind of gave you the confidence, or I guess I'm just curious, like, why did you choose us? I think I'm fishing for compliments, Renee, is what's happening.
Oh yeah. I made some notes just so I would remember what I was thinking. And the first line was, "You led me gently through the process." And like I said, after serving women in crisis for many years, I know how being on the other side of that, the devastation that woman has gone through, and what she needs to hear. She needs an advocate. She needs somebody that's on her side and understands what she's going through, and tell her it's not your fault, because that was a huge thing. What did I do to cause this? And that was the same thing, with domestic violence. And this was a form, in my mind, of domestic violence. And so you led me. You told me what my options were. You were on my side. You understood. And it was, I didn't know what to do. And you laid it out step by step, gently. And I felt safe and protected. Yeah. And so between you and my children and my friends, I said, okay, here we go. Yeah.
Well, and I'll say that, every now and again, when I'm doing a consultation, somebody will tell me their story, and it just like hits, like, it's just like, I'm angry, and I'm like, how could they do this to her? And like, I take it very personal. And when I spoke to you, it hit me. And I don't know what it was. It was just like, this is not right. It's completely wrong. And she doesn't deserve this. And of course, I don't know. I never know at the time if you're going to, or if anybody's going to hire us. But I hope that you did, because I wanted to be the one to help you right that wrong. And so, I guess going on with the story. So he files for divorce, you get served. We have to go to a temporary hearing. And so anytime, and I guess it's kind of just the legal component of it, typically in divorce proceedings and in custody proceedings, you'll always have what we call a temporary hearing, where the judge is basically going to put a Band-Aid on your situation. And she is going to say, you're going to get some spousal support. You're living in the house. This is who's paying the bills. This is who's paying for attorney's fees. And so we had to kind of get geared up for that process. And we had a few weeks to do so. And I remember that as we were getting geared up to do all of this, one of the things that really kind of, I guess, concerned you and frustrated you was the finances and kind of your knowledge of all of that. So kind of speak to that.
Right. I I was one of those women, my mother was a strong woman. I considered myself, and I still do, definitely after coming through this, but I considered myself a strong woman. I trusted. I I loved him. We were friends. We were soulmates. So we walked through life together, and I didn't question. There was he had full control, and that was okay. I took care of what I took care of, and he took care of, what he did. So I wasn't aware of what he had and how much, but I knew that he was wise in his savings and his stocks, and so um, I just knew. I said, I'm not. I don't want to take you to the cleaners, but I want half of everything because, yeah,
Well,
I
and he
was.
had worked at Chevron, right? And
Yeah,
he had, throughout his career, made a pretty decent living. He had retired. You guys had put your money in investments and things of that nature. And so, I think walking into the process, both you and I really thought, okay, there's probably gonna be more than enough
yeah,
to go around and to make sure that everything's well taken care of. But then we get into it, and what do we find out?
um, that he was holding back. Yeah,
Yeah,
um, he wasn't completely upfront with what we had, should I say?
yeah, what you all had.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of what we call discovery that we had to do in your case, where we have to request documents from the other side. And, sometimes when we're going through this process, the other side isn't forthcoming, which unfortunately was kind of the case in your case. So we had to find other avenues to get those documents. We get the documents, and we kind of figure out that maybe what we thought we had, we didn't actually have, which was concerning, right?
Mm.
Especially considering the fact that now we're having to potentially split everything.
Yeah.
So we go to that first hearing, the temporary hearing, and we were asking for some temporary spousal support because he had been in control of all the money and you didn't really have much of anything coming in. And we'd also requested some attorney's fees as well. Um, and I would say that was a success.
Yes.
We were able to make that happen for you. But one of the things that I remember so vividly from your temporary hearing, and it was via Zoom because it's in the middle of the pandemic. We were kind of going back and forth, and I was asking you questions, and the other attorney had to come in and ask you questions on cross-examination, and we had to kind of put your story out there. So the judge already knew about the affair and knew that he had basically controlled the finances and that you needed help. And I remember on cross-examination, his attorney had the, I guess, audacity to
The audacity.
let's just say that, because I was like, what is going on here? But what did he say? He said, so let me get this straight. You believe that you should take most of his money every single month. And you don't really care how he feels, or do you not care about how he feels? It was something to that effect.
Yeah.
And what was your response?
What was my response? I can't remember exactly, but that really is my concern. I have not thought about that. He's a big boy. He takes care of himself, but that was not my concern.
Well, so what was funny was I said, objection, you're argumentative, because I thought it was just a BS question. Like, he didn't need to ask you that. And so judge pauses, and she's like, I think I'd like to hear her response to this question. And so she said, Ms. Morris, go ahead and answer. And you took a deep breath and you looked off camera, because that's what you do when you're thinking.
I do, don't I?
And you were like, I guess I really haven't given much thought about what he needs and what he wants. And I was like, oh no. Like, I was just like, oh, and Judge kind of
Yeah.
Judge kind
Yeah.
of smirked and she said, next question, counsel. But it was brilliant and it was good. And I felt when we walked out of there, when we, I guess, jumped off of the Zoom, I felt like you had your say.
You know what, Christine, just then with the thought that was going through my mind, between you and Judge Billingsley, you gave me my voice. Because at some point I didn't have a voice, I didn't have a choice. It was just decisions were made that was devastating to me. But that day, I took back what they say, I took back my power. And it was because of my representation and the judge. And so I just, yeah, and then it was on and popping then.
Well, it was, for sure it was.
It was.
Yeah, and it was good. And I remember we got on the phone with you and your boys, and because they had been watching, and that was probably the first time in the process that I thought, okay, she's gonna be okay. Because I was worried. I was worried about you.
Were you?
Yeah, I was. I mean, that's and I think that people have this tendency of minimizing what happens when you're going through a divorce. There's literally been psychological studies that equates this process to a death. It is like somebody has passed, and that is what's going on within you, and it's tough. And it's even more tough when it's 30 some odd years.
30 years. Yes. And you know what? I'm a believer in the Lord. And there were many, many nights and early mornings that I would wake up and he assured me. And, you know, sometimes he speaks through your grandchildren, he'll speak through a sunset. And sometimes you can actually hear him audibly. And I heard him say, I will never leave you or forsake you. And that is what held me. That's what held my mind and my heart. And because I said to him, I need you to hold my mind and my heart. And I have a tattoo right here that says held. And he held me through the process, and he's still holding. So that's my testimony. He can do anything. Yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful, Renee. And yeah, I mean, when you said that, when you did that, I was like, all right, she's good. We're gonna be good.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the case progresses. We continue to kind of do some digging and some discovery. You know, Lester has to fork over a bunch of cash that helped us kind of get through the process. And then I say it was a blessing because, you know, that was one of the things that was kind of unique is you guys had been married for so long. And I mean, when you're married that long, you kind of forget some stuff. And a lot of times it's like we were piecing a puzzle together, trying to figure it out. Well, I think, you know, honestly, by the grace of God, we were able to learn that the house that you all had actually been living in and had built was an inheritance, which I thought was kind of funny that you didn't remember that it was an inheritance. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't remember? And so that was beautiful because, you know, a lot of times in these cases, the judge will make you sell a home, right? If you don't have them to buy the other party out, the judge can make you sell it and split the proceeds. And I was worried about that for you.
Yes.
And so we were able to figure out that it was your inheritance, which meant you got to keep everything in the house and the house. And then we were able to kind of, you know, make sure that you were taken care of financially. So that was good. Renee, what do you think is the most or was the most difficult part of going through this process?
Mm. I think it's the shock. The shock. If I had seen something, or if I had if we had been arguing, if we had had trouble in my mind, and then the shock of okay, now everything that I know is getting ready to change, and I don't know which way to go. I don't have a clue. If it had not been for my adult children, my friends, and my attorney, I would have been lost. And I think that's what it is. And so you educated me on what my rights were. And like I said, after serving women in crisis, domestic violence, and sexual assault, for her to know, which was my job, for her to know how valuable she was and her voice, and she had a voice and she could use it. And so I had to do that for myself, that I have a voice and I'm worth more than this. Yeah. And so that was, man, I had a team, and I still have a team, and so I'm upright, and I'm whole, and I'm healthy, and I'm looking forward to my future. And I got my grandbaby sitting on my lap. And so that's what else. Yeah.
So, I guess, do you have any advice for anyone who finds themselves in your situation?
I do. There's a statement called blind trust. No, be aware. And it's not for any reason, but you are an equal. As a woman, you are an equal partner, whether your husband or your mate makes more money or takes care of all of the finances. You need to be at that table. You need to know exactly what's going, because it's a partnership. And it's just a good thing to know. Don't be blindsided. It doesn't mean that you don't trust. It's just good business to know. And so, yeah.
Excellent. And so, I guess, and one of the reasons why I asked you to share your story with me, and I'm probably or hopefully going to have other clients do the same, is a lot of times when people come to us, they're hopeless. Like they're just lost, and they don't know what to do, how to do it, when to do it. They're just hopeless. And so I guess it appears as though now you have hope. Did you say that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And what you said, if it had not been, I'm so grateful that I was led to the Jimenez Law Firm, because you gave me hope. I didn't have a clue. You were my advocate, and your whole team, and then my children, like I said, and friends. And so hope. Otherwise, I have no idea what I would have done if I didn't know that there was hope, that not all was lost because he walked out the door. Yeah. Yeah.
And so how are you doing now, Renee?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to my future. I tell the Lord, I said, I'm not looking for a husband. I just want a friend to go out and eat. So I got girlfriends, and I go sit at Buffalo Wallow. And COVID has made it a little more difficult because it has constricted our moving about. But I'm healthy, I'm happy, and I'm free, and I'm held. I'm held. Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy for you, Renee. When I have these stories and I have these conversations with my clients, it really kind of solidifies why I do what I do, and why we spend so much time on it, and why we stress so much about it. Because I think that there's there's really an opportunity to help people, even if it's just one person every now and again that we get to kind of touch their lives. I think that's a blessing, and it's something that I'm grateful for. And I'm grateful that you trusted me and you trusted my team, because it was a lot. It was a lot.
It was a lot. I'm so glad that the Lord put you in my life. That's I always say, yeah, I know. If you need some help, I know who to send you to.
Well,
thank you so much.
No, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for joining us. And I look forward to all of your future blessings.
Thank you, Miss Christine.
You have a great day. All right, Renee?
You too. You too.